It's been interesting listening to people talk about it since from people that like aren't from the past, you know.
Yeah, yeah. No, so that's one reason why I wanted to get you on when you reached out to me because I mean you definitely know the Midwest scene as a more whole since you live within it a lot more than I do. Which I mean, hey, with this new I.T.C thing and my last video, at least, and also thank you for watching. Now there's three people watching: my mom, my wife, and now you.
Nice. Yeah.
But yeah,
And I generally don't have like I don't watch much content. I'll like sometimes watch uh Vince's show every now and then. I'll catch it like rarely. Oh, and then I'll watch back Rob's show because he happens to the Honest Wargamer. He'll stream at 5 in the morning for me.
yeah, it's pretty early
I'm
for
not
us.
I'm not waking up for that. Like he's great, like love Rob, but like I'm not fucking waking up at 5 for his show. Oh man.
No, I hear that. Yeah, I look at content, and I've definitely learned over the past couple of years that if I'm not really jiving with like what they're talking about, or I get bored, I just turn it off. It is what it is. I've listened, I tried, and got what I wanted out of it. But this show, I joke like there's apparently you, there's my mom, and there's my wife that watches, which is probably like, so no, my wife doesn't watch it, but yeah, this is just fun. So thanks for jumping on here to talk a little more I.T.C focus with the Midwest perspective that you have on it. So, I mean, since we've been recording here for past minute and a half. Don't worry, nothing bad's been said. But
Yeah.
why don't you let the folks know at home like who you are, where you live, your experience with Warhammer Age of Sigmar.
Yeah, so I'm from Minnesota. It's like the from people outside of the country. I'm that little nub that sticks into Canada in the middle of the US, so like very northern side of the middle of the US. And been playing Warhammer since I was 15, I think. 15, that sounds right.
Mm-hmm.
So like 13, 14 years now, going on 14. Started like when Age of Sigmar came out, I was playing fantasy at the time
Mm-hmm.
and just kept going with it. Never really looked back to the old world. And
What'd you play in the old fantasy days?
I converted a bunch of juggernauts, the skull crushers, the mortal ones,
Mm-hmm.
to Zinch juggernauts, and I ran Chaos Warriors for a long time. I had a mix of demons, warriors, and beastmen, and then I just focused the demons and warriors when the book split because I got in like
Mm-hmm.
right as the book split, which was very confusing for someone who'd never played the game before. Like, oh yeah, like all these guys like go together, and then they're like, actually, as of today, they don't. And I was like,
What?
what does that mean? And they're like, just don't look at the beastmen anymore. Just look at the other ones. And I was like, okay,
But
sure.
that explains because you got that sick Zinch tat, so it's cool to know that you've been a Zinch player like OG for since you started. I mean, people know
Yeah,
me like
I mean the
yeah,
Skeksis tattoo from the Dark Crystal, and then I was
yep.
like, oh look at this Warhammer game, this seems great, and then oh there's just giant Skeksi demons that are magic wielders and scheming little assholes, and I was like, I could do that, I like that.
All in.
But then the Juggernauts are just way too cute, so like the
Yeah,
Juggernaut cuteness plus Zinch, and that was just me.
especially back then, that was the closest we had to like good puppies, the little corn
Yep,
doggos. So can't go wrong with it. But no,
it's true.
that's cool. So yeah, I mean, you've been part of the Warhammer scene quite a while then, and therefore, why I had you on? You reached out after the last show I recorded where I talked about the Midwest, and I kind of talked about the different areas in the country. Now, you being
Mm.
a Midwest person, I knew you were one of the few that, well, I assumed was few, who are in support of the I.T.C. I mean, you're always a top competitor. You're very well versed on it. Heck, you were the one. If anyone, and I'm sure most people, if you're watching this, you've watched better content out there. Watched the Honest Wargamer stream the last game LVO. That was you as the cameraman on that, who graciously gave us, your time to hold the
That
camera and
was
burn your
me.
battery out. So that was fun. That was a great way to view content. I don't like. I literally had Rob show up watching, you with the camera, him talking about streaming it, and I had the 40k guys on, and I know Adam, I don't know the Falcon on there, and they're talking about that last game, but truth be told, I mean Rob's a great hype man, he's got the charisma. I enjoyed the Sigmar scene better than the 40K, talking about the like the tightest top game going on of the entire year.
What was that,
There's
game
a
9 for them too?
Yeah,
Like, and ours
that
was
was game
game
nine.
8.
That's game nine.
Jesus.
I don't know how they do that, but yeah, you guys on your end for the Sigmar end was just so much more exciting to watch. It was just the enthusiasm, the energy, the crowd of people watching around. It,
The
it, it definitely showed a different way to
the
stream.
bootleg pirate stream. Yeah.
It's a different way to do it, and heck, I watched I think it was Grim After Dark on the FLG network. They're kind of like joking about that. What about those pirate streams going on Sigmar and like Val Heffelfinger, who who films for other companies and also the FLG team. He said he loved it. He's like, this is great. So I mean, you have the support of everybody. So I hope to see more things like that going forward. Maybe we can get actual cameras. So we're not ruining someone's cell phone doing this, but it was fun. It was really fun.
Yeah, like, that's actually been one of the things that, like, for the people that stream like Rob and Frontline Gaming, that I've wanted to see is a camera that like circles the table.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think having one that's like either movable, either someone holding it, or like on a track system or something like that. So being able to either see the players or just to like zone around the table instead of just the top down view. Because like the top down view on stream, like I used to work at AT&T, and I'd actually just like put Rob's stream up on their like Apple TVs,
Mm-hmm.
and people would be like, "What's this?" And so I had to explain, like, because you're just looking at circles at that point, right?
Right.
Like from the top down, it's hard to tell that they're actually models unless you know. Where if you had one that could like zoom on like in on the side, you could actually like get a kind of more of an in-game view of it. But so that's kind of like what I felt going into it. I'm like, this is like the one chance that like we'll have for this, and it ended up working out. Watching it back though, I'm sorry for everyone's eyes. It was very shaky. Did not realize it like when
No,
I
that's
was
good.
doing it, how shaky it was, but it was shaky.
And there was, I mean, they had a little roving camera at the Warhammer US Open, the last two events, and Val obviously helped out with that. But it was like a side angle camera that they roll around, kind of like a mobile thing. It worked really well. I mean,
Mm.
if you incorporate kind of what you did with that for like a pirate boot stream type thing, that would be ideal to get Sigmar going more until we get it fully up and running at the bigger events as a consistent basis with whoever wants to do it within the U.S., outside the U.S., whatever. That's not my wheelhouse for discussion.
Neither is mine.
I just
Like
I
at
just want it. I
all.
don't care who does it. I just want it.
Yep,
But
agreed.
uh, that said, so you've seen obviously Frontline Gaming, Nintendo LVO, our participant in the I.T.C. You've seen what the I.T.C. did for the 40K community years ago when 40K was at a bad part. We were in the dark days. Games Workshop really wasn't giving any support, and we're really just not engaged with the community. Now, obviously, that's all changed now. It's much different as it has been. It's always going to go different ebbs and flows, but I mean, really, I.T.C. saved the 40K in my mind. There was a short period of time after it saved and the GM was going back that I thought it was starting to hurt the game, but I think it's kind of balanced itself out back now. But what do you see as
Yeah.
far as I.T.C. goes, whether it's for 40K or just in general?
So when Sigmar first came out, like, was literally the time when 40K competitive scene, like, that growth was so rapid. Like, and I just like, and I played 40K and I played fantasy at the same time. Like, I have way too many Tyranids, way too many Thousand Sons, like, just enormous amounts. It's like I've played that too. I think I've played 40K a year shorter than I played fantasy.
Okay.
So like I've been in both scenes for a long time, and I'm from Minnesota again, which for a long time had like a ton of the top 10 I.T.C. players, like, for a while. Like Matt Root came from Minnesota, Ben Sherwin's in Minnesota. All my Warhawk buddies from North Dakota, they came down to every event that we had here. Um, like Tyler DeVries, there's a whole crew of people that's come out of Minnesota that's been really good 40K players. And so, like, by proxy, I would go to the events with them at, wherever in the Midwest, because most of the people back then, especially, would only attend Midwest events. Like, I think the furthest I got out of Minnesota was Adepticon, and the furthest north I went was a tournament back in Fargo, I think, something like that. So like I'd only really traveled up or down, and only at most 2 states away, and even then only kind of Wisconsin's just a drive through state,
Right.
you know. So uh so like, and that was kind of it for a long time. And then when the ITC started happening like more frequently, and it started to draw bigger crowds, I saw that growth, and I'm like, this is insane. And like Warhammer Fantasy was like doing okay at things like Adepticon,
Hmm.
but like local events at best were like 30 people, 40 people maybe. And
Right.
then I'd drive, an hour or 4 hours or whatever, and I'd see a 200 person 40K event. I was like, this is crazy. This is awesome. Like, this growth is insane. And then the game changed, and we lost a whole chunk of players from fantasy
Right.
because they were upset, and but the crowd that stayed, I was like friends with, and I wanted to see that growth from there. And me being a competitive person from a long, like my whole life pretty much, it'd be cool to like play at all these local events and just kind of see how we did against the East Coast. Like I didn't know who any of the guys on the East Coast were, or the
Hmm.
West Coast at the time, and I just wanted to like promote that. And and at the time, even now especially, like I think it'd be cool if Warhammer went pro. I think there could be a pro circuit and the hobby circuit like at the same time. And I feel like a pro circuit would be insane levels of hobby where, if there's like, once there's money in it, the amount of like professionally painted armies that would come out of it at those like professional events, I think would be insane. Like
Hmm.
like imagine like a whole team having a professionally painted army, or like having from whoever your favorite painter is that level, and it's two full teams of that at a top table at a whole team like live streamed event. I think it'd be insane. Um, and that kind of like mindset and view really like drove me to push it back then, 5-7 years ago, whatever it's been at this
Hmm.
point. Who
Yeah. Yeah.
knows? Um,
Yeah. I know it's very interesting. Like that end goal that you envision. Like, I can definitely see it, but it's really hard to like how do you get there from here? Because even like where we stand right now, I'm a big supporter of the I.T.C. and I like what it does. I'm also not a big cash surprise support person, like cash money as a
mhm.
reward, but I also understand that to get professional, that is what it takes. So I'm not saying it's never going to happen, nor it won't be a good thing, but it's really interesting to think about like how do we get there? How do we make that step? Because that's a really interesting step. And now with Games Workshop throwing support behind the I.T.C., that is like another step in the direction that it could lead to that. I mean, who knows? But you're younger than me, and there's people that younger both of us who are going to be the future of this that will dictate that when we're both gone and dead for sure.
Right.
But yeah,
Yeah.
how do you envision we get there from where we're at today, where like if like or hate the ITC for whatever reason, it seems that Sigmar doesn't really care for cash money support. So how do you just, I mean, off the cuff, I don't mean to throw you like a wild question here like that. Just more curious of your envisioning of it.
So, and I mean, a lot of ideas have like come and gone, and I know that there's like I've got good friends that really don't want to see it go pro, like they think it'll ruin the hobby, and there's people that I know that want to see it to go pro, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's everyone like in between. And you know, I haven't done like enough research on like the esports side of things, but I know people who have, and know what it takes to get to there. But I think things like just getting as off like as an artist, this hurts me to say, but like just getting the exposure for the game out there
Right.
through brand sponsors. I think is it the Canadian WTC team is, or like World's team has a Nike sponsorship thing, or maybe they just got it done by Nike. I don't know, but like having stuff like that where you have brands come through, and
Right.
and like I know Army Painter and Nike aren't the same, but like if like Army Painters fully invested in a team's army, where they go, all right guys, like we're gonna put your like our logo on like your jerseys, we're gonna get you your jerseys, we're also gonna fully paint your army. If I was an army painter, fully paints an entire team's army,
Right.
be insane. Or like I think blue table painting back in the day, back when they were really big. I don't know what's happened to them since. I haven't kept track, but like stuff like that would be insane. Or you could have, all like a lot of our hobby companies are not big enough to really support that, obviously.
Right.
But like Adidas, AT&T, Puma are all brands that support esports. It can't be that big of a jump for them to start supporting like tabletop sports teams.
Hmm.
And once we're there, like that's just the start. There was an event, I think it was in Texas, that they were trying, like a company like that was trying to do a big cash prize for like a single 40K tournament.
Hmm.
I didn't keep track on like how well that event went. And I think it was held by people that like weren't really in the game. They just like kind of wanted to see it.
Right.
But if someone like GW or Frontline or Adepticon or Nova or whoever, like all of a sudden, like if one of those events were like, hey, like the cash, like the entry fee is $100. Top like first place gets this, second place gets this, third place gets this, whatever. Then it could bracket down. I think like
Sure.
esports tournaments bracket down like 10 different teams, right? Like where they like it splits, the $100,000 prize pool amongst 10 people, and then or 10 groups or 10 teams or whatever. And so that like how much they make isn't really a ton, but it incentivizes other companies to kind of do the same, and then incentivizes those people to go to more events, right?
Yeah.
And all of a sudden those events are not necessarily bigger, but you could have the people that either want to try for it or want to play for it at an event. Because like LVO was what, 170 people?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
40K was 900, 700 people. It was
Right.
sold 1,200 tickets. You could easily do at that event, be like, all right, there's 3 GTs, just normal GTs, and then there's a pro circuit at that same event. Adepticon, which was like almost 200 people, could definitely have like, here's the pro circuit event, and then here's like the casual event. Casual event could still be super competitive, but the pro circuit event, you would just have both at the same time. Our community, I think, is strong enough and is diverse enough where having, the people that are really good at backyard football could play alongside of the pro leagues, right? I mean, I come from
Oh yeah.
Minnesota. I know I know my sports teams are trash. I don't follow sports. I just know that
You know
that they're
that
trash.
they can, yeah, you know how to use them to comparison. I kind of
Yeah.
I kind of see it from the fitness side of things. So pro bodybuilding, you have to start amateur and you have to earn your pro card. So I could see, a similar sort of thing. Like you have to win a certain number of GTs, or maybe that's one of the prizes at a GT that you get your pro card that allows you to, go onto the pro circuit for next year, or however it works. Because and if you look at the
Mm-hmm.
bodybuilding people who are doing that, they're not working any less hard. It's just, you know, they're, it's different levels. Like I'm very
Yeah.
fortunate to play Bill Souza, a couple times a year usually, at different little local events. And like, trust me being as competitive as I can be, I play Bill Souza, and him being relaxed is still a couple gear shifts above of what I can do, because like I said, there is that level, and it's a great thing to see too. I mean, I'm not trying to make it sound silly, because it's really fascinating how there's different levels to this game based upon where you're at and where your headspace is at and what you want to achieve with it. I mean,
I mean, even like for you guys, like you're in the same city, right? Or the same like
yeah, he
same
lives he
basic
lives closer
city.
to Pitt. Yeah, we're both driving to Pittsburgh easily.
Yeah, and I mean the people that I play with on a regular basis, I think one guy I've just met recently, like since COVID, I didn't realize that like he was going to LVO because no other Age of Sigmar player from Minnesota, except for like two, and one's left us unfortunately.
Mhm.
Um, they like just like haven't gone to LVO to play Sigmar. Like they'll travel to like Wisconsin and Chicago to play events, but they haven't gone any farther than that,
Mhm.
especially not like on a plane, except for like once.
Right.
And all of a sudden, like at LVO, I just like look up. I'm like, oh hey, like, what's up, dude? Like, how's it going? But like back at home, I people talk about how all the events that I go to pretty often, and the lists that I play aren't super nice. And but when I play people, I explain like, hey, this is like I'm practicing for tournaments, so like
Oh yeah, you gotta have
I'm
that
gonna bring
conversation.
filth. Like, please bring as filthy as nonsense as you want, or as casual like nonsense as you want, and like I can tone my skill down in the game, and to at least like have it be a little bit of a game. Sometimes dragons and foxes don't care how much you tone it down, but
Right.
uh, but there is options like when it comes to that. But even so, like me and him have never played before, and all of a sudden he's sitting like two tables down at LVO, and I was like, oh, like no one told me that you were coming. Like like we could have like hung out more, or whatever, or like we could have played practice games leading up to it, just to like have me help him out. But at the
Hmm.
same time, as people that like a really good friend of mine, when he goes to events, the same events locally that I do, he just brings armies that he doesn't have to think about while he plays. He doesn't even drink, but he's like, I just want to bring 10 models. I got Nagash and a bunch of
Hmm.
dragon like zombie lords and knights, and we're just gonna push him forward, and I'm gonna have a good time. But me and him play like not right now, but like we and him have played like once a week almost, like
Hmm.
pretty regularly. But just because our skill levels are different doesn't mean we can't hang
Oh
out in the same room, play in the same events, right?
yeah, no, absolutely. It's just like you said, have that conversation. Like if I'm going to a club day and I'm not practicing for an event, I'll take corn. I'll take something fun and easy. But if someone wants to try and
I'm gonna be playing a Skaven list for the next couple weeks,
oh
just like
really?
fuck around with it.
There you go. There you go. It's like I'm working on. I got an event here in a couple weekends. So one day, our Martin Orlando's running. It's a team event, so I'm going with my buddy Matt, who's running Fire Slayers, and I have my new KO army, 1,000 points each. But boy, I did a test run of 1,000 points of KO, and thank God there's Fire Slayers on my side. 'Cause, I'm all cannons. I built this army just like I just want to shoot cannons and move boats around, and I do that. But I roll lots of ones apparently with this army, so you know,
It hurts.
it
It
does,
hurts.
it does. But tell me more, because the one thing that really fascinates me, in my time, and I kind of explained on the last pod or episode, I didn't really make it a podcast, but I've spent the past 7 years getting to know a bunch of people across the community, travel across the country, understanding the different metas. It's just a byproduct of everything else I've done. So I feel like I have an
Mm.
authority to speak on it. But you have a lot more intimate understanding of the Midwest and the I.T.C versus no I.T.C. I have my views from the outside in, obviously.
Mm.
So tell me your side. We don't need to talk about the people who aren't for it. That's fine. That's their freedom to have that choice and opinion, whatever. Like you guys
Yeah.
do you. But tell me about the people who within the Midwest who are very pro ITC. Like how big is that community? Is it a growing community? Like what are you doing within that community? I just want to hear that side of the story, honestly.
So honestly, for mine, like especially like locally, there's a bunch of competitive players, and when I travel down to like what is it, Nebraska or Oklahoma, kind of like central Midwest to
Mm-hmm.
like the west side of the Midwest, um, everyone just kind of uses it. Like it's not a whether we're for or against. Like it does 40K super well, and like so why not just like have it. And at the same time, while they're submitting scores to the ITC, some of the guys locally there are they're hosting their own masters in the Midwest.
Hmm.
Like they called it Midwest Masters, and I was like, why are none of the Minnesota events in there? They're like, well, you guys are just like in a different spot, and I was like,
Midwest is pretty big.
no, well, like we're still Midwest, and he's like, well, fine, we're Great Plains Masters, and I
Oh,
was like,
okay.
all right, fine.
Yeah,
So
whatever.
but like so they do their own thing, and but they also at the same time they submit the scores just because that's just because it doesn't hurt anyone, right? So
Right.
they're like, here's a thing that we like to do, that we keep track of, that we like to kind of interstate compete between the 3 or 4 states in that area. And like a few of them don't travel a ton. I think there's a family there's a family that I know from Flying Monkey and Bug Eater. They're actually going to be coming to the Cherokee Open that'll be
Oh,
running in a couple weeks.
nice.
But besides that, I haven't really seen them a ton outside of the area. And then of course the Chicago, Detroit area, Nashville area, like also like that kind of groups. There are two kind of Midwest groups that almost like yin yang, like circle each other, uh, just like in that area.
Right.
And some of them just have I.T.C events, and then some of them are like raging against it. But the ones that have it, they're not like. It's just the weirdest thing to me because like the people that are for it, like even myself, you know, I guess not the only thing that I go for. Like I go to events
Yeah, I think again,
because
we all go because of
because
each other. We all go for the camaraderie more than anything else.
because the events are all the same. Honestly, like the ones that I've been to, that the thing that changes events is the TO.
Mm-hmm.
Honestly, like the TO is what makes or breaks an event, and whether it's myself included, like I've run a few events that people hated it. It's probably my fault. Jacob Berry can say it might be mad at me still. I don't know, but like and you. So if you've had a bad time at an event, if it wasn't like a specific player that for some reason you guys had a bad game with or whatever, which is so unlikely in any of the areas that I've been to, um, it really doesn't matter like what they do after the event or before the event, as long as like the event that they run is fine. Then then it's just gonna be like that's gonna be what matters. It's not gonna be if they submit or not or if they don't. Like the Holy Wars events, like Steve
Oh,
Herner is incredible.
yeah,
I haven't been to it, I haven't been to those events in a long time, but it's not for anything on him. I just haven't been invited, haven't gone, and the tickets sell out like
they sell
super
real
fast.
quick.
So
Yeah, it's. I mean,
yeah,
it's a
so it's
fantastic
just
event. But you're right. I mean, he does different tables. He makes the event special and different. But if you look at just standard competitive focused events, I hear you. They're similar. We don't do comp anymore as far as this game's concerned. And I keep pushing. I hope we never do. I worry as I see more things like Worlds start putting out their own FAQs to start the comp. But if I don't want comp, but I hear you that it's kind of the same stuff. I mean, if you look at the GHBs come out, there's certain missions and battle plans that are going to be better for events than not.
yeah,
So yeah, so you really look at an event like, oh man, I can't wait to go to this city to hang out with my friends in this city. Oh, we'll get to play some Warhammer. So those 3 hour rounds that you have, how do you make that? How do you make that exciting? I guess in a way. And I guess on your end, having the chance to compete, it is an exciting thing for you too.
yeah, and that was so like obviously I went to Sigmar's been out for what 7 years,
Yeah.
and I've been playing for 14.
Mm-hmm.
So for half of my competitive, like I think I started competing a year after getting into Warhammer, maybe even the first year. I don't know. Like the first 1 or 2 years are pretty vague anyway. It's still in high school, obviously, so like that kind of counts, kind of doesn't. But I would definitely go to like little small events, and I think I was still in high school when I went down to Adepticon the first time. Maybe I was 18 or something like that. But like there was just I've been competing for almost my entire Warhammer career, and I.T.C has only been out for 7 years, maybe.
Yeah.
Like maybe the 40K, like obviously the 40K
40K's
is
been
a little bit
longer.
longer,
Yeah,
but but like it hasn't changed. The only thing that it's changed realistically is just the size of events, which was always their goal, right? So like, and yeah, they're running like 10 events now. I think their plan is to run 12. Maybe it's just 10. I forget. I
yeah.
haven't listened to
I
his show
mean,
either in a long time.
I mean,
But
there's definitely a level where you have to separate FLG from ITC. I mean, they're obviously
oh, for sure.
compared, but like FLG with coming out of all the lockdowns and shutdowns we've had, they've definitely struck when the iron's hot. They have the capital to do it, I suppose, to do these big events kind of as rapid succession as they have. And some are going good. Like I think ACO was a great success. I'm planning on going next year or this year, I guess. But New Orleans, I know for Sigmar it wasn't a good success.
That was a big old miss for sure. Like 2 weeks before, GW was like, "Here's 70," and they're like, "How about 7?" And everyone's like, "No,
It
like
definitely
that's
wasn't
bad."
the TO because John, who's local down there, who ran the New Orleans Open for FLG, was also part of the U.S. Open team because I met him down there and he was a local, but we brought him onto the team after New Orleans. He's a great guy. It's just I think that's more of an advertising thing, honestly, from FLG's end for that
Yeah,
one.
and yeah, and like FLG and GW even like they do promote 40K more so like it
It's
is
the
the
money,
bigger
yeah.
like money like in the
It,
game like in between the two games for sure. And so like I totally get that, but like even going and like competing for I.T.C points, like people keep trying to talk about how players just become numbers in that, and it's like it's almost offensive to like the people that I play against.
mhm.
I mean, it's obviously also like a dig at me or whoever whoever they're talking about, just players that go and compete for I.T.C points. But at the same time, it's like the people that I play against. I have pictures of every game now that I'm writing for Goonhammer, and I
Mhm.
have my Patreon. I talk about my games all the time. Like I still remember most of my games. I think the article I just did about LVO in my 2021 I.T.C season, there was one event that I forgot what one of my rounds was against. Other than that, like I had 10 events, went to 10 events, something like that.
Yeah, you were well
And I
traveled,
still
yeah.
remember like each event, like each not necessarily each round in or like in what order, but I remember playing every person. And I'm terrible at names, so I will never get your name right the first, second, maybe fifth time. But like I will for sure like remember the game or remember that like like that we played and kind of what happened. And it's like just because there's other things involved, you know, doesn't mean that I don't care about the other person. I don't know. You know what I mean? It just
Yeah.
feels weird. Like it's and it's probably not meant to be an insult. Maybe it is, but it's just like really like is
Well,
that
it's
all you think that this is? Like I'm so very confused.
yeah, no, I think there's definitely folks out there that kind of see there's competitive play and narrative play, and they see it as two different sides of the coin when really it should be treated more as a spectrum. I mean, me personally, when people label me as one or the other, I get a little, kind of annoyed with it because yeah, I'll show up to compete, but I still wrote a story for this event and why the hell I'm here, and it's gonna carry my narrative for my armies, but doesn't mean I'm not there to compete and try to
Every
win. You know what I mean?
yeah, every chaos army of mine and my stormcast army are converted to be Zinch.
Mm-hmm.
Like all of them. Like
Yeah.
literally all of them. Like it yeah, it's even being competitive players, like even if you were just building in a gray like the gray tide to go try to like win an event, it's still if you're a gray tide person trying to win an event, you're also like probably not necessarily like an ITC person. Like it doesn't like there is no ITC or non ITC person. I think it's
Yeah.
just like the people's attitudes towards whoever introduced them like is kind of the difference. I
Yeah.
feel like
Well,
I
my
don't
one of
know.
my locals, Cole, I think he placed fourth IDNF Deepkin for this year, and he went to LVO, and he had some good scores, and he has one of the most beautiful painted. I mean, IDK always paint up really well, but he's this beautiful red few thin scheme. Like it's beautiful, and he put a lot of work into the army, even up to the event, and he still went there and tried to smash face. He was doing practice games on TTS as much as he could practice. So, but we have a club day this Saturday. He's gonna show up and he's gonna foot won't be on the gas because he's not in a competitive mode right now. So yeah, I definitely think there's that danger of labeling people too much one way or the other. Even if you spend more time in one wheelhouse as opposed to another, doesn't mean you don't enjoy every aspect of this hobby.
Right.
But no, I mean,
Yeah. And
yeah, sorry, go ahead.
so and the one thing I think I'm planning on talking about with Rob too that's actually pretty interesting is when it comes to the ITC and 40K versus Sigmar, like 40K, the ITC has been used across the globe for sure,
Yeah,
like definitely. It is really funny that apparently there are people who are like upset that England is gonna like quote unquote take over the 40K like ITC because
England,
all their events are too big and like they're just bigger than all the US events.
really?
But at the same
The
time,
England 40K ones are. I know 40K, but just from the
yeah,
U.S. scene, so that's really
yeah.
surprising to me.
Besides LVO, the like all the major. like the largest 40K events are all in England right now.
Hmm.
And but that was always like Reese and Frankie's like goal and plan was not only to like have the ranking systems, so just to see, like from what I understand, when they first started, it was to see how they ranked up against each other,
Hmm.
like in their just local club, and then other clubs and other people were like, hey, like that's pretty cool. Like, what if you like had more events in there, and so other people from across California could see how they ranked up, and then people across the country caught on, and then people across the globe caught on. And at first, the goal for that was, especially like you said, when 40K was in its downward spiral for a little while there.
Hmm.
Well, the goal was to kind of catch it in that spiral and bring it back up again, and bring it and increase the quantity of players at events, which
I
it
mean,
will in turn increase the quality. And obviously, like when you expand like your sample size, you're going to get some bad eggs or whatever, or some
yeah.
ones that focus on being, as Rob says, well, I'm like the 13th best towel player in my state, and it's like, yeah, okay, there might be like four people that say that,
Right.
um, and
But is that the
and
people you're hanging out
like
with afterwards anyway? Probably not. They're
probably not.
like we all know each other
Yeah.
pretty well inside this community now. You kind of know if those people exist or not, and I don't think any of them exist out of like the circle of friends I have, which is a pretty vast circle within this hobby.
Right. And it's like, yeah, and it's cool. And like I do have some top in faction trophies, and
Yeah.
they're really nice, and like that's just like something that I like to go for. I mean,
Hmm.
having best Zinch with the Zinch tattoo, like it's kind
Yeah.
of on brand, right? But at the same time, some people will talk about it and they're like, hey, like, if all these major events happen, what does it matter for the small events to submit? And missing one small event being submitted for me, that just like something happened with the submission or whatever, like it was a mistake or just like an accident, and
Yeah.
that one of those small events actually affected me potentially taking best lumineth for the season,
Hmm.
and any of the four that failed to submit could have gotten me into the top 10 for this season. So it's like, yeah, technically, and especially with Sigmar being smaller than 40K, it's a lot easier for that kind of stuff to happen. But even in 40K, like if you have like a 1 day tournament like at your local scene, because I know the Forge, is that the big, like the new shop near you guys?
Fabricators Forge. Yeah.
Yep, that shop. Like I imagine that shop could hold a 30-person 1 day event, and
Yeah, we could probably squeeze that. Maybe a little shy of that, but yeah, we can get a big event in there.
like those events like super matter, especially when it comes to like best in faction awards for the season. It's because like if you'll have people like Gavin or Bill who don't focus an army the whole time, and they'll play one different faction each round, or
Hmm.
you'll have people, I think Alex Gonzalez from the West Coast, I think he would cycle through all the death factions, so he'd play for best death like overall, but not necessarily best soul blight, or not necessarily
Right.
best Oziarchs, right? um and for me, most of the time it was like, I don't care if I got best chaos, I don't care if I got I'd shoot for first overall and then best Zinch. And if I could do at least best Zinch, then I had a good year. You know what I
Right.
mean? Like that was kind of my thing. And then I would play. I know for one season, I think I played Chain Chokes the entire season, but then the next season I like changed it up and played Witchfire Covens and
Right.
no sub factions or whatever. And so you just have a whole bunch more to play for, instead of just like, because if you go to an event and you're like, I want to get best chaos, and then like for the event, and then you just like you miss it, then that's just that event. Whereas you could miss that event, but maybe you still play better in the next couple than the other chaos guy behind you, and then it becomes like a, like instead of just a rivalry at one event, now it's a rivalry for you guys at all the events.
So when you
You
finally meet
know,
up with them at LVO or ACO or Cherokee Open, yeah, I think the
Nova,
yeah,
Adepticon, like if they submit, I still can't figure out if they're going to submit.
uh,
No,
I
probably not, but
I
like
know
I don't know.
Nova has ever since I took it over. Now that James
Mm,
O'Brien's kind of in charge of it, it's for sure going to keep submitting on the major
yeah,
events. So yeah, and like I said, we all support it. I think the one thing too is to be clear, um, if you're going to TO an event, just put it in your pack. Like, we will submit scores to ITC or we won't. Because also, I've heard some people like, oh, people are bugging me about submitting to ITC and I don't want to. I'm like, well, just be clear about that. That's all you
And
gotta
just
do.
say you're not gonna.
Just say,
Just be like,
just
all
put
right,
it back,
well, I'm not gonna. And people will
we're not.
just
This is not going to be submitted to ITC. If you put that one sentence in the pack, and if anyone complains to you, just tell them like, okay, don't show up, and then that's the end of that story. But if you say you're going to submit and then you miss submitting, yeah, people are going to bug you. You have to kind of own that responsibility as a TO. But I think it's just something else to add into packs. Like, this will be submitted to ITC, and if someone doesn't put it, probably safe to assume that they aren't. I guess maybe, but like who knows? It's still early stages for all this. I mean, heck, even my little
for Sigmar for sure.
yeah, my little 8-man invitational, I submitted to ITC because I thought it was fun.
Right.
Like it didn't hurt
And
anything. It was like that's cool. And then one of my players there, he's like, "Oh man, I wasn't last in the ITC because of your event, Chuck." I'm like, "Cool." I don't know how the 8-man event got you enough points to not be last, but there you go.
you never know, man. Sometimes that happens. But yeah, so and the fun thing I think for me with all this, especially these days, is that now that Rob's doing his own points,
Right.
he's brought it up a ton, and a few people have mentioned it. Like the ITC isn't big for Age of Sigmar in anywhere but most of the U.S. And it's not, I mean, then obviously it's not all of the U.S. because we have the people that don't want it here. But
But the US
like
uses it
all
quite
like
a bit as
but
far
like
as worldwide.
yeah, but like England and like Australia just like really just kind of don't. And but then with Rob's new stats, which is what I'm planning on talking about him like with him with later, is the difference in the reason why his stats and rankings are currently, I would go as far as to say better than the ITC ones, is because well it's better but also like different. So the reason why it's better is that he didn't give anyone an option when he made this. You know what I mean? Like they went and found all the events, they found all the information from all the events, and they went and just made the stats themselves. But that's just something that Reese and Frankie have never wanted the ITC to be. They wanted it to be a participation thing where like some people, they want people to just want to do it or want people to just do it, or they wanted it to be a choice. And now that the Honest Wargamers like taken over event stats, they've just taken away that choice, and like it doesn't bother me any. Like go for it. Like I'll send whatever events that either I do or I go to. I'll send his way. Like I started helping him during quarantine submit the TTS events with his like the first stats that they were doing. I think it's great. I think all more information about the game that we have, the better. Better for newer players, and better for competitive players, better for everyone. And it's just
competition's never a bad thing. Maybe TSN will. Yeah, that's what it's called, the TS. No. Yeah, TSN ranking, is that what he's calling it officially? I don't want to.
Player. Or I think one of the videos was the ultimate player score rankings track or something like that. Like he's made a whole bunch of names for it, sure. So who knows? But
yeah, I might make the ITC guys like, okay, we really need to focus on Sigmar. And, that competition's always a good thing. So that's kind of where I'm sitting with that. So more power to everybody that wants to do anything within this hobby. Have fun.
Yeah, but then at the same time, right? Like Rob's not taking into account the small events. So for Rob's scores being oversized doesn't matter, but also there's a limit, or like there's a bottom cap to it too. Like where if you're below that, they don't want to look at it. If you're above that, you just score whatever is the top cap, and that's totally valid way to score events as well. And I think that that kind of event is probably better. It's like there probably doesn't need to be 800 people in one singles event. Probably too much. You could probably just have 8 singles events and be just fine.
Right.
And then you could still top 8, right? Because then you top 8 of those 8 events. So whoever placed first at those 8 events, then they can go and still have your top 8 cut. But like you're able to kind of spread the points out a little bit.
Mhm.
But in Rob's scores, you can max points, so you could have a tie as like who's the current best player right now because all of a sudden someone goes to a 64-person event 5 times or 6 times and just wins it, like
Right.
wins all of them, first place is all of them. That's an achievable goal for Rob's stats. Whereas for the I.T.C math right now it's you have to go to the largest events and win the largest events,
Right. Which
but
definitely,
also
I mean, it weights it that if you're in the running for winning the ITC, if you go to LVO, which is the biggest event typically, if you win it, you're going to win it overall. Whereas
yeah,
you
but then
said
it,
Rob
but
Stats maybe lives a little bit more leeway within that space.
yep, and then it's harder to win, right? Because I mean, I'm probably not harder to win, probably similarly as difficult to win, but like taking first in Rob stats is achievable for everyone. I mean, divided by how many 64 person events there are, of
Right.
course,
Yeah.
but it is technically achievable for everyone. Whereas the I.T.C, like how their math currently works, is different. I think I've heard that they're changing it potentially to the number of rounds in an event, so the player count won't matter as much anymore. Now it'll just be the round count,
Mm-hmm.
and it's all just different. But the I.T.C does have room for the small events, for your little 8-person 1 day events. It also has room for the 8,000 player events, but where Rob's kind of starts and stops
Mm-hmm.
a little bit before 64 and
It's
then
all
at 64, right?
it's just
So
it's all
it's
valid
just
though.
different.
Yeah, different, all valid.
Yeah.
Just to, when you're looking at it, it gives you different reasons to dissect it. I am excited because there's going to be a Pittsburgh GT this year in May, and I think this is going to be the first time I'll actually ever be on the ITC.
Oh, really?
I
You were just TOing before, and now
well,
you get to play.
I was running events, and then I started TOing events, and when I started TO events is when I started putting ITC ranking into certain places. So,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kept, TOing events that did it. So I've realized I've never actually been ranked within it. So I'm kind of curious. I'm going to try to get to, what was it, 3 or 4 events just to see where I place. I'm not going to really be pushing for anything. I just kind of I just want to see where I land in the state of the United States, really, as far as showing up to events and trying to compete.
Yeah, but at the same time, like clearly, we all know you're a huge Daughters of Cain player.
Right.
Like that could be like your only goal is to try
Rank,
to
yeah, rank
be
as high
best
as I
daughters
can.
in the faction,
I mean,
beat Dayton Obrey in you know like
to,
in that event. But
yeah, that'd be a fun goal. It's one of those ones where I have to kind of really like this year I'll think about trying to push for next year on it because the season begins and all that, and you got to plan the travels out. But yeah, and I like that. Like I would never probably push for best overall. I mean, with the Gavins out there, the Bills, yourself, I know where I would land after getting to a top tables near the end of an event. So really though, it's like you said though, it gives me something to compete for. Okay, I get three and I'm 3-0 going into the fourth round. I run into Caleb, a Gavin, you or a Bill, and they probably take a loss there because just caliber of play. But it doesn't mean I'm out of running for best daughters. Now maybe if daughters was a
like
little
at that
weaker,
event, you might be out for best order, right? So like if I
right?
only have because like some events you go to, so in my experience, some events you go to and you'll have you have best overall, you have best Renaissance man, which is Renaissance and
Yeah.
overall is the same. I guess then you'd have best best general, and then you'd have best painted. That's only like trophies that you have, and sometimes trophies are nice, right? Like they're not important for everything. Obviously,
Right.
you just met 5 new people usually,
Mm-hmm.
and that's then like traveling to events, especially like every time I play a game, it's generally a new person. So like I've met so many people going from Minnesota to New Jersey to SoCal to Las Vegas to Atlantic City. Like I've
Yeah.
met so many different people across the country, and it's been super nice. But like at some events, they do just those top three, right?
Yep.
Some events they'll do just best general 1, 2, 3, and then maybe like a best painted or something, and then maybe they'll have some events will have best sports, some events will have best Grand Alliance. And then you
Mm-hmm.
get whoever the top 4 Grand Alliances are. But if you're going for best, but if you're playing, let's say Sylvaneth like in 2.0, and the Foxes are at the event, like you're probably not getting best order at that event.
Yeah, yeah.
Like you might be trying really hard and you might be really good, but you're just like it's going to be
There's
a harder
eventually
ask for that. But
there's an army gap
there's
at
eventually
some
going to be a
points.
better faction above you, right? Or maybe you do win it all like with that, and that's super great and super good for you. And they feel amazing and definitely like something to strive for. But so, like the maybe you just want best gets, like
Hmm.
right now, and maybe that's your whole thing. There's a whole bunch of gets players. They don't rank super high, so if you can play them enough and get to enough like small events or even enough big events and just do decently well with them, all of a sudden you're actually like competing with other Gits players, and you don't have to compete with them locally. All of a sudden, like
Hmm.
you're competing with the Gits player in California, and then you're competing with the Gits player in New Jersey, and then you're competing with the Gits player in England, and then there's an Australian like Gits player that like comes up and gets crazy because they have a huge Git meta out there. I've noticed it's
Yeah,
really
yeah,
weird.
it's odd.
I don't understand what they're doing, but they enjoy their Gits, so that's fine. But
Yeah, it gives those armies that are suffering from rule stagnation. It gives you a reason to play them. It gets you excited. Like if you really like Blades of Corn, and that's all you want to play, like right now is a terrible time unless you have something to shoot for. Or I mean, sure, maybe you're showing up just to play and have fun. But like if you really want to shoot for something, you could shoot for I.T.C. best Blades of Corn right now, and be viable. Even if you're
mm,
losing most of your games, you're still probably progressing towards that goal pretty nicely.
yeah,
So that's
yeah,
pretty cool.
and
And
it's just
good.
go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just to say it's nice to know a little more nuance. What's going on. Because like I had my broad brush talk about where I see the I.T.C. With exception, like there's always going to be those outlier cases, but it's nice that there's more differing views, I guess, within the Midwest. The scene I thought was pretty much just against it, which I thought was an exception of a few, but I'm wrong. There's more people in there that have a demand for it, and for sure, as this takes off and the I.T.C. crew starts reaching out to people, like it's nice to you know for me, because they might ask me, hey Chuck, who can we talk to in the Midwest about it, and I could say like, okay, well here's the areas and events that don't want to use it, and that's fine, not a big deal, but here's the areas that do, like show the love and support to people who want to love and support you back. So it's nice to know that's out there, and I appreciate being educated a little bit more on your scene out there in the Midwest. So thank you.
Yeah, and also like the thing that's in a lot of the discussions that I've had with people um that are against it, they're like, well, we don't want to be. One of the main things is that they didn't want to be told what to do,
I
and like
I
now
hear
that
that. Yeah.
now that GW is supporting it, they're like, well, now they're feeling like even lost, like that they've lost even more. And like as funny as it might be to me, in reality, it's like if they don't want to, no one's making you. Like if you don't want to submit, if you think it's still like the worst toxic thing in the world and you're super still against it and you're just whatever, right? Like you're on that side of the fence and you're so far that side of the fence that nothing else can it will change your mind. Cool, man. Like good for you. Like that's super great. Guess what? No one's gonna make you. So just don't just tell people we're not doing it. And then people will
You'll
just be like, cool.
yeah,
like
yeah, and like
like
people will probably still show up and play, even if like if Adepticon says, hey, we're not submitting, are you still gonna go play at Adepticon's events? I mean, I don't think it's gonna deter you. Maybe for some people it will, but not everybody. And I don't want to put any words in your mouth. But it's like, sure, if you don't want to submit to I.T.C, that's fine. You do you. Run a great event. Have a good time. You're gonna attract the people that agree with that, or at least don't care. You know what I mean? Like there's the
because there's a
majority of
ton
people.
that don't care.
There's a majority of people across the
The-
country that are very middle of the road. That's fine. It's honestly it's probably where most people sit. They just kind of slightly lean one way or the other, but they don't care in the end of the
Man,
day. You know.
your questionnaire at Nova just made me cry every time. I was like, half the people don't care. Nice. All right. Yeah, that's just like half of them do, half of them don't, and there's like three that do that like don't want it, and it just made me cry every time. I thought it was funny,
It was,
but
yeah.
like
I mean,
there's
hey,
actually a
that
small event. There's actually like a local RTT. What 2 weeks before LVO? Maybe the week before LVO. 2 weeks before LVO. There was a local event that was like, hey guys, like we're gonna run like a tournament, like 2,000 point tournament. Normally they do like 1,000 point ones or narrative ones or whatever. And I was like, oh, they're like 2,000 point tournament. I can go try out like my LVO list and just kind of like see what happens.
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, but I was like, hey guys, like you didn't say if you are or not. It's like, are you gonna submit? And they're like, no. And I was like, cool. Like it's still 3 games in a day. In
It's good.
5 minutes away from my house.
It's
Like I'm
practice.
still gonna go.
Yeah, why not?
Like it's still games. Like I'm still here to play Warhammer. I'm not here to. I'm like I didn't start playing Warhammer to get points in something. I started playing Warhammer because I like Warhammer, and so I play Warhammer because I like Warhammer. Like
And points are just a cool
just
bonus.
it's just a neat thing, yeah.
Yeah.
And at the end of the year, I can be sad at myself. I can be hyped like for myself. I can be hyped for my friends. Like I think
It's a good measuring stick for yourself personally.
yeah, and some people, maybe they are 300th, like 360th or whatever, like in whatever ranking system you want to use, whether it's Rob's or
Yeah.
or theirs, or maybe your local masters or whatever, right? But then next year you're 300th and you're like, hell yeah, I just jumped 60 spots, like let's go.
Yeah, there you
Like,
go.
and but like then like for me on it, like actually for me though, like I went from second place, I think in the first year that I went all in, second place overall to fourth place. And then the next year I was fourth place again. And I was like, you've got to be kidding
Oh yeah,
me.
yeah.
This is rough. And then COVID happened. And then 2020.
They carried that over,
Then COVID happened, which like kind of screwed up that year quite a bit.
Yeah.
And then this last year, I mean, I missed 4 events and I missed the top 10 completely. Right. So like, it's like, so for me, I'm just like watching myself and like self-depreciating anyway. So like no one else has to insult me. I'm doing it enough for everyone. But like, but at the same time, like I know where I'm at still, like overall, like I know that like I could have been in the top 10, like if I had those points, and that would have been great. And then even so, like to even like prove that point, like I go to Rob's score, which has only 5 round events, and I am sitting like at number 9 versus like 11th or 14th, or I think I ended at 14. I don't know. Who knows? I forgot at this point. But like, it's just cool to see. For me, it's just cool to see that. And some people, they don't care, and that's totally fine. Like they don't want to see it. They don't care to see it, and it's whatever.
Yep.
And no one has to change your mind. You don't have to do it. You don't have to like it. Some people go and they're like, oh, like I think Caleb Walters like came up to me at like Summer Slaughter or whatever, and he's like, hey man, I'm like number 4 in the I.T.C. That's pretty cool. And I was like, yeah, dude, you're fucking killing it. And he's like, I didn't even know it existed until like yesterday. And I was like, I know, because you don't care. Like it's great. And he's like, hell yeah. Yeah, it super does, right? And I think he even got best Zinch this year because that's all he played and he killed it. And Caleb, it's like, yeah,
Caleb loves Zinch. He loves his kids, and like that's his world. That and his wife. Like anything else can just it's surprised him. It's great. He's a great guy. But
and now he's just getting a trophy in the mail for doing what he loves, and it's just like like that's sweet. And like sometimes it won't happen, sometimes it does. Like sometimes you have to try for it, and sometimes sometimes you just get it, and it's just kind of nice to have something else to play for. Really.
Well, I mean, kind of to go back a little bit. You mentioned like I put the survey on Nova when I started running Nova. Like, do you want scores submitted to I.T.C? I did that because I wanted to know what my players wanted. I take a very different approach whenever I run events too. I was taught, run the event you want to play. Run the event you want to play it. And for some reason, my brain twisted all that and said, no, I want to run the event everyone wants to play. I can run any event. Events are very similar. If I really want to do like a narrative event, obviously that's different. But competitive event are so similar. It's, hey, what event do they want to run? Which is why I asked. In the first year, it was like 70% yes. And then the next year, it was 95%. So like obviously at that point I was going to stop asking because I knew what that community wanted. So just if you're out there and you don't know what your community wants, just ask them. If you have a score sheet, it's like, hey, do you want points submitted to I.T.C? People might go, what the hell's the I.T.C? You can tell them if you want, or point them to where they can learn about it, like shows like this or plenty of other shows out there that talk about it. Yeah.
The website also.
There was just a website. Yeah.
That's also pretty easy.
No, but ask your players, and if they all come back and say no, we don't want it, then don't submit. That's it. That's all you have to do. That's all the justification you need. But
And
regardless,
then at the
it's yeah,
same time, like, and it goes both ways, right? Because like, it's like if all your players say no, but there's like two people that do, they don't. You don't have to like insult them or like
yeah,
think that they're like awful and dumb people. Like they just think that that's cool.
right,
You know, they still play the same game that you do. You all think the same game is cool. They just want to do something else too. And
right,
then if you do, then like the other way, like obviously, like I personally like laughed when there was like three people that said no at the Nova thing,
mm-hmm.
but like
But yeah, I should
and
say
it,
it was
but
70% yes. Two people or three people said no. The rest said I don't care. So that's probably what you're going to get. There's going to be very few people who just say no. Most people are going to be I don't care, and a few will say yes. So it doesn't hurt to say yes and submit.
yeah, and but like me personally, like I did laugh like when only two people like said no, but that's because of my like history with the people that said no.
Right.
Realizing like that was more of a personal thing of realizing that like the people that are actually against it are just a very like vocal minority. And then sometimes like maybe their hometown is like everyone hates it. And
Yeah.
they're like, yeah, we're all against it. Like, you know, that's fine. But for the people that live in that area that want to be for it, you know, maybe like once every 6 months you'd be like, all right, well, we'll do like one for you guys because I know a ton of local events, at least here. This is all anecdotal, obviously, but
Yeah.
there's a ton of local events that I keep finding out that there's like narrative events at stores around me, and there's like 30 stores around me, and I've like never heard that they exist. But like their advertising aren't for me, which is fine.
Right.
But like I love that there's narrative events for the people that enjoy narrative events. That's super great. And then at the same time, there's a competitive events, and those I hear about usually. Sometimes I live under a rock, but like it's but even then, like some competitive events submit, some of them don't. Narrative events could even submit to that, and obviously they
Or
probably usually don't.
or at the very least they can
But
submit to
like,
the hobby track, which is the paint scoring.
yeah,
That's every event
th-
can submit to that, which is cool.
that I actually am like pretty bummed out that I don't think there's a ton of hobby. Like most of the events that I've been to have not hobby tracks, and I'm like, I'm like not like vying to compete in it, but like it'd be cool to see like, all right, this aren't like this army got put this high in the track, and I'd be like, all right, that's cool.
Mm-hmm.
Wouldn't try to. There's too many Vinces in the world. Maybe like three, but like that's enough for me to be like, I'm not gonna make that. That's totally fine. I know my level there.
Right. Yeah. No, but listen, it's a little bit over an hour now, so I don't want to take up too much of your time. But so this has been very very educational, for me and hopefully for other people out there to see more about the Midwest specifically on I.T.C. or just I mean really the I.T.C. in general. Like I mean, both you and I are very well traveled across the country. Obviously, you as a player, me as more of a TO at this point, but I guess the last thing to say is just don't fear the I.T.C. It's all good.
Yeah, it's not that scary. It's fine.
Yeah.
It'll change your event 0%.
Yep.
Like that's it. So
And if
you
if
might have
it's
to hit the button. And if you really care that much, you can hand it to the person that wants to. Be like, here, you hit the button, and then they will. They'll be fine.
and if you have people that are coming to your events just because they want I.T.C. scores, then deal with deal with them. I guarantee you those people aren't out there, and if they're out there, they're an issue for another reason already. They're probably not coming to your local scene or your events already. So,
Yeah.
regardless, not to go off into that. Joe, where can they find you? Your Goonham articles, your social media. Go and pimp all that before we
So
head out.
yeah. So I've been helping Goonhammer write some Age of Sigmar articles. I'm the Joke, Joek, maybe Jokester, just add an STER at the end. I don't recall what I meant, like what title I'm at with that right now. I also do. I started competitive coaching a year ago, 2 years ago, on Patreon at Titan Wargaming at Patreon, and then otherwise No Paint Fireborn on Twitter and Jack Skellington on Instagram, and that's about it. It's me.
There you go. I'll throw links to all that below for people too to make it easy. So yeah, and as
Sweet.
for me, strengthhammer underscore Instagram, Twitter, strengthhammer.net, and like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Everybody, take care.